This guy can do a 540 spinning kick to someone's face. He's fought Donnie Yen, Jet Li, Hugh Jackman, and Jean-Claude Van Damme on screen, and made them look good. He's been called one of the greatest screen fighters of his generation. So why have most people never heard of Scott Adkins? This is the story of a martial artist who had everything it takes to be the next Van Damme. Except the one thing that actually mattered. Scott Adkins was born in England in 1976. Started training in martial arts as a teenager. Taekwondo, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, gymnastics. The guy became a machine. By his 20s, he was a professional kickboxing instructor with the kind of screen-ready skill set that studios dream about. But he didn't start in Hollywood action films. He started on British TV. Small roles, guest spots, background work. The kind of stuff that builds a resume but not a movie star brand. And then, in 2006, he got the role that would define him, for better and worse. Yuri Boyka, Undisputed II, Last Man Standing. Undisputed II was a direct-to-video sequel to a Wesley Snipes prison boxing movie nobody remembers. It had a tiny budget, no theatrical release, no marketing, but it had brutal, fast, technical fight choreography. And Scott Adkins playing a Russian prison fighter named Boyka, who kicked like a video game character. The movie became a cult hit. Fight fans loved it. YouTubers uploaded his scenes. Martial artists studied his kicks. Adkins reprised the role in Undisputed III in 2010. Even better fights, even more insane choreography. And slowly, Boyka became a legend, not in Hollywood, but in the world of direct-to-video action and online fight compilations. Scott Adkins was now the king of a very specific kingdom. Mid-budget, martial arts-heavy, straight-to-streaming action films. Which sounds great, until you realize that's not how you become Sylvester Stallone. Boyka made Scott Adkins famous, just not to the people who greenlight $100 million movies. Here's the thing about Scott Adkins. Hollywood knew who he was. He fought Donnie Yen in Ip Man 4. He clashed with Jason Statham in The Expendables 2, and Van Damme in Universal Soldier, Day of Reckoning. He shared the screen with Hugh Jackman in X-Men Origins, Wolverine. He had a role in Zero Dark 30. He showed up in Doctor Strange as one of Caecilius' zealots. And in 2023, he delivered one of the standout performances in John Wick, Chapter 4, as Killa Harkin, the flamboyant German mob boss. So Scott Adkins has been in huge movies. He's worked with A-list stars. He's proven he can hold his own on the biggest sets in the world. But in every single one of those films, he's the henchman, the side character, the guy who shows up for one great fight scene and then disappears. Because Scott Adkins became known as the guy you hire to make someone else look good. He's too good at fighting, too technical, too precise. So directors use him to choreograph, to elevate the star, to deliver one killer sequence, and then they move on. So why didn't Scott Adkins ever break through? It's not about talent, it's about timing and market. First, the 80s/90s action era was over. Guys like Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and Van Damme became stars in an era when studios made mid-budget, R-rated action films for theatrical release. Those movies were everywhere. They made money. They built brands. By the time Scott Adkins hit his stride in the late 2000s, that era was dead. Hollywood had moved on to superheroes, CGI spectacles, and billion-dollar franchises. The one-man army action movie, that went straight to video, or streaming, or YouTube. Second, the direct-to-video trap. Most of Scott Adkins' starring roles, Ninja, Accident Man, Avengement, Close Range, The Debt Collector, are direct-to-video or streaming releases. These films don't get marketing budgets. They don't get theatrical runs. They don't get billboards or late-night talk show appearances. So even though Adkins is leading dozens of action films, the general public has no idea they exist. And here's the cruel part. Once you're labeled a DTV guy, Hollywood executives stop seeing you as a theatrical draw. You're reliable. You're profitable in your lane. But you're not a brand. Third, typecasting. Scott Adkins became too good at being the martial arts specialist. That reputation stuck. He's the guy you call when you need a great fight, not the guy you build a franchise around. So Scott Adkins became the most famous action star that nobody outside the action community knows. There's another factor that's harder to talk about: acting. Scott Adkins is a phenomenal martial artist, but early in his career, he wasn't seen as a great actor. That's not necessarily fair. If you watch Avengement 2019 or Accident Man 2018, Adkins shows real range. He does dark humor. He does trauma. He's not just kicking, he's performing. But Hollywood doesn't see those movies. Those are small, low-budget films that most executives never watch. What they do see is his earlier DTV work, where the acting is fine, serviceable, but not award-winning. And in an industry that's obsessed with brands, being a great fighter isn't enough. You need to be charismatic in a way that translates across genres. Look at Jason Statham. He's not a better martial artist than Scott Adkins, not even close. But Statham has a presence, a voice, a brand. He reads on camera as someone the general audience wants to watch, even in a rom-com or a heist film. Scott Adkins? He reads as a fighter, and that's a narrower lane. Here's the tragedy of Scott Adkins' career. He was born too late. If Scott Adkins had come up in the 1980s or early 90s, when studios were pumping out theatrical action films and VHS was king, he would have been huge. Undisputed II would have been a theatrical release. Ninja would have been a franchise. Boyka would be a household name. Instead, he peaked in the streaming era, a fragmented market where even the best action films get buried in algorithm churn. Boyka did become a cult icon, but mostly through YouTube fight compilations, Reddit threads, and martial arts forums. Scott Adkins built a fan base. It's just a fan base that exists outside the traditional Hollywood system. But here's the thing, Scott Adkins didn't fail. He just succeeded in a different way. Within the action community, Scott Adkins is royalty. He's one of the most respected screen fighters alive. He's not an A-list movie star. He's probably never going to be. But in the world that actually matters to action fans, Scott Adkins is already exactly what people want from an action star. Real skill, brutal fights, and zero CGI bullshit. So what happened to Scott Adkins? He had the talent, he had the work ethic, he had the skills that should have made him the next Van Damme. But Hollywood didn't want another Van Damme. They wanted Iron Man. And by the time the market shifted back, Scott Adkins had already built his own empire, one YouTube fight compilation at a time. Speaking of actors who should have been way bigger, you know who else had all the talent in the world and somehow ended up stuck in direct-to-video hell? Michael Jai White. And that story involves Wesley Snipes, a failed Batman audition, and one of the most underrated comic book movies ever made. So now I'll throw it to you. What movie do you wish Scott Adkins had been in? Let me know in the comments.